So, Shalom Aleichem, R Shnayor.
Shalom, Rabbi Yitzchok.
Shalom. This is a fourth discussion. So, in the previous discussion, you made a comment about something. You can remind me about exactly what it was. But one comment that you made was that it seems like we have a machlokes about the possibility of deriving the original pshat of the Torah from the Torah itself. And you call that maybe originalism, or there's different American legal terms that might correspond to it. And you think that I don't hold of it, but you do. And I don't know if you hold of it, or I don't know what exactly you hold of. Or people have very, very different meanings on this. So I guess we can discuss this. That's the...
Right. So I'll tell you what I mean, and let's see if it's anything meaningful and specific, and let's see if I'm right that you disagree, and if there's any, if we can, either of us can get any smarter. What I mean is that I see great value in seeking for the text to disclose its meaning to its students. And I think it can do so. I think we should read the text obviously of the Torah closely in order for it to have a meaning that's very compelling. And I think I mentioned this last time as well, that when you have one meaning, to state it in an extreme way, that's very compelling, that's what allows for the possibility of unity around one idea. And I think that's part of the genius of the Torah, is that it can unify a nation because they can unify it around its meaning. And for that to work, you obviously have to have the possibility of consensus around meaning, and therefore seeking that meaning, the one that's the best meaning, the most true, the most compelling, is of great value, can be done. And what I was accusing you of is that, because I've heard this from you in the past, I think I've heard this from you, a sort of dismissal of the possibility of something being much more compelling, say, than a different reading. People can read into the Torah what they think, which I agree people do, but I also think that there's a certain level of Torah, or a certain kind of Torah, which you hear it and you say, oh, this is the pshat. Of course, I'm referring to my own Torah. No, but I mean it. Like, I wish I wasn't arguing for my own Torah, because then I'd say, oh, everyone says it's about their own Torah. First of all, I don't know if they do or they don't. I think a lot of honest people don't say this about their own Torah. It happens to be I'm talking about my own Torah, but we'll just have to accept that as the terms of the conversation. The context, I think, specifically was about the meaning of Eretz Yisrael. Oh, right, because we were talking about whether hashkafic arguments end up generating action. And I was saying that, well, by exploring the meaning of Eretz Yisrael and then figuring out why it might be compelling today, according to the text, then that's something that could theoretically generate action if people would embrace this notion that let's figure out what is the true meaning of the text, and then it becomes powerful as the text, it gives you the full power of the text when you find its true meaning. So that's basically my thinking here. Is there any chiddush there? Like, it's almost maybe pshita. I'm curious what you see as being, if anything, the chiddush in there, and if there's anything that you disagree with.
I think you said a whole bunch of things. Each one of them is like a whole discussion, and I would want to disambiguate and discuss each of them separately. Okay, I tried to take fast notes while you were speaking. I think I might have missed a few things. So, but these are separate things. Maybe I'll just list them and then we'll see.
Yeah.
The first thing is the ability of the text to speak to me directly, right? If you take the text of the Chumash or any other text. That is one discussion. Obviously, it takes a lot of skill and a lot of knowledge and a lot of work, but that's one discussion. Second discussion was the ability, I think you just called it the like finding one correct or compelling reading. So that's another discussion, like not only being able to read the text, so maybe people would call it on its own terms or directly without intermediaries, but also to discover something that is more compelling than another way of reading it. The third thing that you said was that could then be used, or that is used, or that's how it works, to create a consensus, to have a discussion between different people based on a certain criteria, which is reading the text. Those are three things that you said. Then you applied it to what discussion was
Okay.
last time.
Yeah, I think that hits them. I want to talk about the first two, which maybe came across as two separate things, but really I meant as one. So the first two were, number one, the possibility of the text disclosing its meaning on its own terms without intermediaries. And the second one was that there being a one compelling reading, or more compelling than other readings. And when I was talking about not using intermediaries, the point is not that you shouldn't utilize the wisdom of all the teachers and all the generations who help us understand the text. My point was that that the authority ultimately inheres in the text, meaning the teachers can help you find something in the text, but ultimately they'll just be guiding you to seeing something in the text, just to be clear there. So that is what allows for the third point, which is, about the text becoming compelling, but I also mentioned that in a unifying way. That's only going to happen, as I see it, if there's if everyone's using one text. That text is the Torah. That text is not going to be the Ramban or the Rambam, because he's a Rambamist and he's a whatever and he's this and he's that. So we could utilize the Chachamim. I'm not saying we should study it originally necessarily, although I do believe that that's valuable. What I'm saying is that the Chachamim have to help us to see it in the text itself, so that then the text becomes that which can compel people or compel action.
Right. Okay, so
Wait, and also to the third point, just the way you present it, I want to just tweak that. You presented it. I think the way you said it, it was like, okay, me and you are going to have machlokes. What's the pasuk mean? And somehow after this debate, everyone's going to be like, oh, now that's what the pasuk means. Shnayor's right, Yitzchok's right, and now whoever's right, and now everyone's going to go do that. But obviously, I don't mean that. It's a little more complex than that. I mean, through time and through an idea that then is published and people take it up, that becomes the way people think about it. And people think about the Torah in all different ways. Most of the different ways people think about the Torah because they're approaching the Torah with their own preconceived notions. And I'm arguing that as long as we're doing that, we're not going to be unified by the Torah. And if you look at the Torah as having this very important purpose of unifying the people around one thing, then we have to find a way to get to that one good shot.
Okay, so that's really a fourth thing, according to how I'm reading it. Meaning the fourth thing being the claim that there needs to be such a thing because of this goal of unifying the people and being able to act somehow together.
Right.
So let me make things easier for me and start with the... I forget my numbers. Whenever I do numbers like this, I forget them right away.
Okay, I'll remind you. I kept track there. I like you.
We need like a blackboard like we did before. I don't have patience. But start with the third thing, I think.
Okay.
Yeah, the third thing. So, of course, the fourth thing is connected with this, but my fourth thing. And because that's, I think, that's where we got into this last time. And
right.
It's this very beautiful idea of how, since there is a single source of authority or a single text that we're learning from, those two things are different. But anyways,
wait, two things are different. What? The authority and what we learn from?
A source of authority and a teacher.
Just relates to the conversation. I mean, that's sort of what I come.
Yeah. So that's similar things, but different ways of seeing, very different ways, I think. But anyways, let's skip that for a second. And that is going to help us have conversations with each other or debates, which, assuming that people are acting in good faith and there's some criteria of decision which we sort of agree on in some sense, can then lead to a consensus, and consensus is also needed for action. Okay. So then now there's another question, right? Then you also, a fifth question. I'm going to forget my numbers very quickly. A fifth question, which is included here, is a more specific question, right? Everything until here were like general questions which can be applied to any book or any text assumed to be the authoritative text. Now there's a more specific question, specific in our tradition, probably other traditions have something analogous, which is which text should this text be, right? And you make a claim, and this is, I think, the easiest claim to attack, or the most controversial claim, okay? Because up until now, I mean, assuming like there's some conversation, then everyone agrees on the throughout the outlines that this is how it should work. But now there's a new claim, which is that the text that everything should refer to, and that's good, is the Tanach. Or maybe you want to say the Chumash. Another discussion to have.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, I'll go either one on those. I can go either way.
Okay, it's a serious question.
Yeah, for sure. No, but only reason I can go either way is because I hold, like, as the Gemara says, like a midi benevi uksud lebizabes. No, but I really hold that way. So
I know you're gonna say that.
Yeah. Okay. Right. Okay. It's hard for me to surprise you.
No, I learned from you. I accept that. You're saying that the people that wrote the Tanach are also already working in such a framework, in some sense. Meaning the Nach, right?
Right.
But this claim that
basically it's only Moshe Rabbeinu is what my claim is, that he's our only Rabbeinu.
So this claim is the most controversial claim in the context of Judaism, for sure, for two reasons, right? Or for three reasons. One, for the first reason is for the reason of this thing called Torah Sheba'al Peh, which is at least sometimes said very explicitly to be a second source of authority. Of course, all the discussions, but traditionally, okay, let's leave it like that. Secondly, because the first our question would be: is it even true that this is how it's supposed to be, or how it is even? The second question would be: is this how it should be? For various reasons, we could argue about within, not without bringing in any outside claims. We can argue about: is it supposed to be set up this way, right? It was the Torah set up in the way that everyone should refer to this text and utilize it as a source for their authority or for their learning, or was it set up a different way? Meaning, do we have the question of authority of the Chachamim or of the Spezdin and things like that? That's a second question. So the first question is if it's correct. Second question is if it should be that way. And the third question is the question which the easiest question which we started with is it possible? We could add enough of one of these questions, is it the minhag, right? Is it really how Judaism has ever worked? Yeah. So those are the questions about this specific claim, right? I know. Yeah. Do you want to talk? Which one do we want to talk about? Which of these?
So let's talk about the first one first, because in a way I feel that's the easiest. So because you're questioning what about Torah Sheba'al Peh? Why am I focusing on Torah Sheba'al? So I'm curious if we can deflect that question. In other words, whether the true answer to your question is essentially a deflection, which is that Torah Sheba'al being written has a certain force, has a certain hold over people's imaginations and minds, and it's that unique influence that Torah Sheba'al has because it's Torah Sheba'al, which is what I'm referring to. So can we avoid that whole problem? You do agree that the written word, as being the written word, as being what we go to shul and listen to and revere the book, has a certain quality, a certain enduring quality, whatever the nature of that quality is, as opposed to the oral law. It has this different kind of quality. I guess you can push back the oral law is now written down. So I'm okay. Maybe I just fell right into that problem. But no, I know what I'm saying is I'm talking about something that we can approach descriptively. The fact is the Torah, as the Torah of Moshe, has a certain hold on people. And when I talk about people, I'm thinking about half from Jews, even secular, who have some sort of Jewish identity. The Torah is talking to them somewhat. Torah means something to them. So more than the derivatives from the Torah, such as Torah Sheba'al Peh, or the things that are second to the Torah. And that's why I think, in a certain sense, automatically the real power is in the Torah Sheba'al as being the source and the main text and the written text. And therefore, it makes sense to talk about that. I don't know if we have to define the boundaries here. Where does that authority end? Of course, there's all sorts of authority. It's fluid. this people take authority, but ultimately that text has some power. Does that make sense? Or I guess we could say...
No, I think it makes sense as a certain theory. Something like this is maybe, the Rambam we discussed in Perek Ein Aleph. It talks about why Torah Sheba'al Peh wasn't written. Okay, he says other things, but at least something close or related to what he says is that people have this attitude towards the written text as like this fixed thing which we could organize around, and that attitude, it's a question. So and then the second, so I can understand this as a theory. In other words, that there's a point. Like I had this question, right, and this will be an answer to my question that I asked in a different place. Why is there some parts written and some parts not written? What's the point of like assuming that there isn't like it's just that because the written thing needs interpretation, right? Part of the basic theory of Torah Sheba'al Peh, assuming is that not only that we need interpretation, because that's just Torah Sheba'al Peh Shebeksav v'Pirush. Took Torah Sheba'al Peh as a separate authority, and then you ask a question, why did we have this cutoff? And you say something like this, like people need like some clarity, like this is the thing we agree on, this is the thing we accept, and then that allows a discussion to be organized around this.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, that's as such a theory, I like it. Haven't really thought of it this way. I also think in a descriptive sense, there's some truth in this, although it's not, we have to be very clear, this is not how the Torah is taught nowadays, in any place, I think. There might be some Yotzim and Aklal. But, so for example, it could be that it's like Mechlala, like implicitly taught this way, in some sense, but not really explicitly, meaning we could see like people talk about Medrash and Rari Chazal and later kinds of Medrash. Very obviously, all of these are referring to the Torah Shebeksav as something that can resolve arguments. We have problems with this. The Rishonim already had problems with this, but it's very obvious if you read Chazal that two people are saying something and the other person brings a pasuk. There's power to that, right? It should work in some way, and obviously this works in the Rishonim also, right? They bring psukim and they prove things, even both in Halacha and in Agadah, and in some sense for Achronim also, right? People do this all the time. What people don't do is, so firstly, this is not taught, right? When you go to yeshiva, they don't tell you that the text that everyone has in their head, right? Because everyone went to Beis HaSefer where they learn Tanach by heart, and the text that everyone agrees on and refers to all the time is this Kisvei HaKodesh, and they're using that. This is not what you're taught. So it's already a chiddush. It could be it's true descriptively, but in 2000 and what's the year, whatever now is, it's kind of hard to get people to work this way because we're not taught that way. Maybe because we're taught the result. I don't know. But
maybe what?
Do you agree that it's not taught this way, although it seems to be this way? Talk about Chazal and Rishonim, okay? Like the authorities that all Orthodox Jews now accept, right? Achronim, not everyone accepts all the time. Like we have machlokes Achronim that are still going on, right? But the Rishonim we all accept in some sense, and it's everyone that reads them sees that they're arguing based on a text, but we don't know how to do that, or we're not taught to do that in yeshiva.
Correct. Well, basically, my argument is that we can learn how to do that. That's essentially what my argument is. And I wouldn't put together the Chazal and the Rishonim in that same category because I see the Chazal doing it in a very different way than the Rishonim. I have to figure out how to point to the difference. Like it gets back to the point of originalism. I think Chazal. I see Chazal as having a very clear theory of like what the text meant on its own, and I see the Rishonim doing more of what is done like by people like bringing rayas. You know what it means to like bring a raya as opposed to like get what the text is actually about. You know, I'm not doing a good job explaining this. But you know what I'm talking about? That difference. Like Chazal is still living in the world of Tanach in terms of like the ideas. That's what I see. And I rarely see that in the Rishonim. Like they're doing more parshanos and pilpul, as in, questions, answers. They're not doing medrash. The Rishonim are not doing medrash. And medrash is really organic in a way that the Rishonim are not.
Okay, so, wait. Well, I'm going to comment on this in a second because I want to disagree. I know what you're saying, why I disagree. But assuming, okay, so then, because I wanted to make your work easier and say we only have to get back to Rishonim.
No, so no, absolutely not. We have to get back to Chazal, right? No.
Okay. And we're not doing, nobody's been doing this recently, or at least the yeshivas that we went to, no version of them.
Well, so here's the thing. I've been doing that in my Sfarim. There are people in the Tanach world that are getting closer to that. So yeah, I'm not describing something that exists b'poil, but I'm describing something that exists at least latently, like I was saying before, like the Torah Shabbat is the ultimate source for everyone, and therefore, if we could do this kind of engagement, we should. I agree with you. I'm not describing something. I mean, I'm here to make the world a better place, not to describe it as it is. And part of that betterment is that, but no. But right, what I'm dancing at Tzeichasnas here? Is that what you're accusing me of?
Yeah, because you just said that you're telling us.
I'm saying like
that
this.
Works, and
the given is.
That
I know.
Works.
No, the given is that Torah Shabbat occupies a certain place for the whole nation of Yisrael. That's the given. And that I'm very interested in seeing the nation having a unified mahalach. So therefore, I think it's important for us to, if possible, go back to that which is situated as being the greatest force for the greatest number of people. And I also think it's possible for us to re-engage. Not that we have been doing that in our yeshivas, but that we can and we should make a focus of that.
Okay, but you agree, so you at least agree that we have to first, like in order to do this with the people that went to yeshiva, the people that didn't go to yeshiva, I don't know, but the people that went to yeshiva, who are probably relevant there, that first we have to convince them that they should and could and will work to do this.
Yes.
And then we're going to start doing it.
Yes.
Because you realize, I mean, of course, part of your convincing is to do it and show that it works, I guess.
Right.
But at least some of the fremdkeit that you get bumped into, probably you because you do this, is that you say something based on the Tanach, and then people come and look at you like, all right, so what did Rebbe Kevega say?
Exactly. I think I told you this once. The strongest raya is from an Achron, then a Rishon, then a Gemara. The weakest raya is from a Pasuk, right? Okay, this is true. This is part of the challenge, which like you said, I think we by doing it and engaging with it, slowly people can learn the value of it. You're not going to beat me into not stating my position here. You're not going to scare me. No, I'm saying I agree with you. No, I agree with you that this is a radical position, different than people think. And yes, I get that kind of pushback or frimkeit, and it's challenging for me. I'm saying I have to force myself. I believe that we should push this out there, and it can be done, should be done.
Okay, no. So I'm very curious about what is at stake in this, right? Besides for like saying people don't think this, okay, which is a shtickle problem, because like I think there's a lot of power in the argument that it's a good idea to have the United States has a constitution, and there's this great debates of what it even means, but it seems to be helpful that there is such a thing to have the debate about.
Right.
And if we use the Torah Shebeksav specifically in the similar way, you think would be very helpful. Besides for there being a specific thing that Torah says, would also be helpful for having some agreed upon authority, or maybe some basic ideas that we agree on, and so on. But we don't actually have that, or at least maybe I was trying to help you by saying maybe we have that latently. Like maybe we do have it, but we don't know that we have it.
Right. Well, what do you say about what I want to go to a bigger question here? Like, do we have legal theory at all?
No, that's right.
No, I'm serious. Because if we don't, why are we talking about that? No, like, where does the work here? In my yeshiva, there's going to be a class in the theory of halacha, like the legal theory. So
I told you,
we argue here. I'm trying to figure out where you are. What?
As the usul afik or something like that. Yeah. The sources of the roots of fik. But we don't have it. Traditionally, there are some goinim at Hashem that wrote on this, but we don't really do it. I don't. But this law, I think we're talking about something broader than that, right? So let's think. Let me try to see. So first, I want to talk about this because at least this is something I see somewhere.
I guess, was it Torah Shabbat meant as that? Is that the question? Do we care what it was meant?
No, let's work with this theory that it's meant for this. I don't know if it was. Let's work with that. Let's work with that. I also accept that it used to work like this. because that's, if you read Chazal, I think also the Rishonim, I'll tell you in a second, it does work, like, it did work like this, okay? Don't think it worked to save us from the problem of Sinas Chinam, the problem of splintering it into cults. It didn't save us from that, historically.
And not because the pshat wasn't good enough, you say, right?
I'm not so, this is where the problem, this is
Right.
where I'm getting to the problem, what I really have. But it did work. In other words, this is the exception. Unlike what they teach you in yeshiva, where I guess it's some version of like the Goinim's theory we discussed today, where there's not really a debate of what the pasuk says. It's all what Miki Abram calls drashot samchot. All the drashas are just asmachtas, really. That's not the case. You don't get that impression from from Chazal.
Okay.
And let's think. Could we do what we use? Like, but we're not taught like this, and it seems to take like maybe the way to, if you want to convince people, you have to show them that some achronim agreed to this mahalach, and then you could use that to do the mahalach.
Right.
Problem is that achronim don't agree with this mahalach.
Well, you have more or less simple. What about the Mesh Chachma?
Oh, very good, very good. So there are some. Rav Hirsch is probably your hero, really, in this. The one achron that explicitly espouses this mahalach.
Right.
Does it? I don't know. I've not read enough of the Meshech Chachma to tell you if he does. Why don't we do it? Why? Like, why doesn't anyone do this? Why haven't we been doing this for a long time?
Right. So my theory is that people don't know how, but they can be taught. That's my very simple theory. How it happened that people lost the ability, how and why that has changed, I don't know. You can speculate, but as a matter of fact, I believe that people don't know how, but that it can be learned.
People means they're kivayga, right? I'm not sorry if you don't want it to.
What?
I mean to say.
Yeah, I don't think Ubikvega right. I don't think people. Yeah. I don't think Ubikvega tried to do it right, and I don't think he tried. No, I mean it's interesting because Ubikvega didn't write all the
Maybe if he would have tried, it would have been known how to because he was smart and.
No.
Maybe if he would have tried, it would have been successful.
No, it's also interesting because Ubikvega Dafka didn't write all the Torah. It's an interesting example you chose. So let's stick with Ubikvega. Very safe, right? Ubikvega did not do this. Didn't know how. Also didn't try. Basically, I'm arguing. I mean, I know we once discussed this. We were talking about once about the loss of a derech halimud and what that does to the chasima. You were arguing that when we forget how to learn a certain way, that effectively creates a chasima on everything that those who did that derech halimud were engaged in. Right? That was the theory, roughly.
I don't remember that I said the chasima, but you could.
No, the notion of like we don't dispute. No, like that we don't dispute is because if we can't understand, it's very interesting. So yeah, there's always this. I think there's definitely been this notion in history that like we can't do what they were doing or we don't understand what they were doing. And when it comes to Agoda, I don't think that's true. Again, anymore. Meaning, I could say, well, I think I could do it. I don't think I could recreate Torah's Koyanim. I'm not saying that. I wouldn't say Mina Behemoths, Lahitzis, or Reveya, not Mukto, whatever, or not Esnan. That I can't do. I don't know the Klal Prats and all that. Maybe that can be done also. Obviously, people don't work on that, but I'm talking about more in Medrash and like what does the Torah really want from us? Like what's the Torah all about? I think we can actually figure that out.
Okay, so but this is a big claim. So I'm trying to make the claim smaller because it's quite a big claim to say something like you said Chazal. I don't know when Chazal ends. I think when you say the Shonim didn't do Medrash, Rashi still did Medrash.
Yes,
in my opinion.
I agree. No, I agree.
So somewhere between Rashi and Tosfos we stopped.
Right.
Somewhere. So the cutoff is somewhere between Rashi and Tosfos, like
Rashi's daughter.
Yeah. Like in Ashkenaz, maybe in other places was earlier.
Well, the Ashkenaz in general, they did a lot of Medrash, I think. The Ashkenaz were doing a lot of Medrash too.
Right. So, and of course, so this split is very late, but late enough. Again, it's before the authority is accepted by all Orthodox Jews living now, who all follow at least some medieval authority to some extent. And and you want to skip all of that.
I want to skip all of what? Wait, what's the claim? I want to skip what?
If you want to say that Tosfos didn't know how to do what you were doing, and you want to do something that Tosfos already lost, right? There was a gullus or whatever. Tosfos already didn't know how to do it.
Why trying to scare me?
I'm not scaring you. I'm just explaining your job. Right?
I'm getting scared. I'm getting scared.
Like the Vilna Gaon, like Karamban Villa Karashba, whatever.
Yeah, like what's the taina? Like take it on the merits. I don't get it. Like learn my torah. Tell me if you're wrong. Like I don't know. Yeah,
we're living in an authority world, which we should be living in because most people are not as smart as you. I mean, I would try to make your job.
Wait. I want to put a pin on that. You're saying authority. See, you just used the word authority. That's why I think I'm being thrown off here. Because who's talking about authority here? I'm not talking about halacha. Since when did the authority come up over here? I'm talking about let's learn Torah. Why can't I learn Torah?
No, and if you want to, well, you do. No, wait. We already discussed last time. We're doing something that's not halacha or agada, right? It's like something bigger than both. So you don't really have this, like, you could say, like, if someone comes and says, I'm halacha v'lo l'maaseh, I'm just telling you pshat in a pasuk, pshat in medrash, whatever, you're doing more than that, right? It's not halacha v'lo l'maaseh. It might start off with just
l'maaseh v'lo l'halacha.
Okay.
Right?
It's bigger than halacha.
Right.
Yeah. So halacha becomes, let's say, halacha is like a very small part of all of this.
No, so you're saying you need authority for that. That's really interesting.
I'm not saying you need authority, at least you to start the conversation with normal Yidden, including, when I say normal, I just mean me, like when I imagine myself as a normal Yid, which is very hard to do.
No, but here's the thing. Here's what I want to say, and like, this is going to come out all wrong, but like, where does Moshe Rabbeinu get his authority from? Moshe Rabbeinu. So if I'm interpreting Moshe Rabbeinu, what are you talking about authority? I don't get it. Why am I crazy? Tell me what.
You convinced me. You convinced me. You'll convince me on the merits. I'm asking.
Right.
But most people you won't, and I don't think those people would be wrong for not being convinced, because you have to. I would say something to convince me. Forget about other people. To convince me, you have to give me a better theory for why the Rashba couldn't do it, and what it is. You could say always they just didn't spend enough time on it, whatever.
Why do you care about that question? That's a historical question. Why don't you learn my content and tell me if it's right or wrong?
Because I would say that, like Chester's and Sven's situation, right? If you think that they're just somehow missed something simple or obvious, I would probably think that we missed something. You missed something simple or obvious.
Okay.
If you can explain me, this is specifically why or what. Or if you could do even better thing, which is to convince me that they didn't miss it, they did the same method. It just, if you could so just be clear, if you could, I've known, I mean, and I'm going to make like grand social theories now, and then you're going to quote them back to me.
No. Before you grant social theory, we're wasting time. I feel like you're wasting time. You want me to answer why, if this is correct, something didn't happen, instead of just telling me it's correct or incorrect. Why don't you tell me if it's correct or incorrect? I don't understand. Unless you're anticipating the objections I'm going to get, and you're just trying to see what am I going to do to answer that. I don't answer. I tell them the same thing. Tell them something I'm telling you. I don't care. Why should I care? I guess that's what I'm trying to understand. Why should I care about this?
I don't. Okay, because I don't need other people to talk. I don't need to speak in the name of other people. It's my objection. I've known a lot of people that, I mean, you know them. We just talked about them earlier. We know some people that are smarter than everyone. Turns out they're not actually.
Right. So that's I feel bad. I feel bad. I have too much gaiva that I don't like that I sound like those guys, but I know. Okay. But again,
I get that you're
Yitzchok, so what do you do to those people? You show them why they're wrong, or you know why they're wrong. Do you know why I'm wrong? Tell me.
I don't know why you're wrong. I think I do. I'm actually. So let me tell you what I think. No. So I have a problem even with those people who you agree with me that they're wrong. I have a problem telling it to them without coming off as very, very condensating, right? Or as just demanding a minute. Believe me, I've learned more than you, or believe the Rambam, he learned more than you, or anything like that. I have a very time doing that. And in my way, my Derech HaLimud actually includes is based a lot on the Minas Chachamim, in the sense of, and it's from experience. Like, I've had opinions about things even for many years, a few years, I'm not so old. And then I've studied something better, and I realized that I was the one that was wrong, right? Or at least that there's a mukim. And that's why it's harder for me to accept. And this happened multiple times, right? went through 4 shittas already. And this causes me to have a lot more. I'm very open to hearing your pshat in the Torah, and I will use it, the parts that I like. But his comments say, like, this is the mahalach that's going to do something that nobody has been managed to do for 800 years or 1,000 years or 2,000 years. I have a meta skepticism about that, not a specific kasha on your pshat. That's why
my
I have
question
this.
is like this, I guess. So what happens? But your mimetic skepticism, does that tell you that cannot happen, or it just tells you as a method you should be skeptical that it has happened?
Yeah, it gives me like a general it raises the bar. It raises the bar. You have to be a lot more convincing.
Right. And like I said, I shared the same thing, copy everyone else except for to myself. So what should I tell you?
Exactly. I think so. So, for example, I want to make your job easier, because I think that, again, there are people that you could talk to in this way, and those people each say like you, like, it's my pshat, that's the one.
Right. Okay.
I don't know. It's actually very interesting, but if we go back to like the reality of the structure of authority, and authority, I don't mean fixed authority from which people make arguments and split off.
Right.
In the Jewish world that I know, right, one that I sort of was brought up in and sort of know a little history of. So, like I was saying, you could manage. It's a hard task, but people have managed to do things based on authority of rabbis that lived 800 years ago.
Right.
It's been done for the Rambam multiple times. It's been done for the Zohar. Okay, whatever. It's been done for the Mikbulim and the Shainim at least once or twice. It's been done for I don't know who else. Yeah. In some sense, it's been done for the Kuzri in the religious Zionist world.
Right.
It's been done for him. For his Kuzri Ramban chat of Eretz Yisrael, it's been done. These are three nice examples where people have managed to claim that there's a Rishon, right, a tzaddik that holds like me, or that I learn from and I modify according to what I understand, of course, and made this into a real community that accepts its authority in some sense and works with the concepts. Nobody has managed to do more than that, maybe for reasons of conservatism or whatever.
Right.
Nobody has managed to go back to Goinim. Right. People have been trying with Nisach Tefillah. Nobody has managed to go back to Chazal for sure. And for sure not anything. The Kerim were the last people to try to go back to the Chumash, right? At least that's our historiography. That's
right.
How it
what about the Gra and Chazal? He seems to have this thing of trying to go back to Chazal.
Yeah, but turns out he's going back to the Shainim. Because he reads Chazal and the Shainim. So he doesn't even have the concept of some people even will claim that the Gra is just Achrayim.
Okay.
It's very interesting. Okay,
yeah.
This is a different discussion. I heard from Rabbi Fisher or someone, Shnayor Fisher, in his name. Or it's people like him that were critical of the Gra's claim to being Chazal. In any case, the Gra for sure couldn't do Medrash, right? He's using the authority of Chazal, which is a Rishonic concept, right? A more simple thing that you could understand. Is that correct? Maybe he does.
Somewhat. Qualified. I would say qualified. I don't know.
Okay, so I don't know. I don't know enough. But the Gra's project
speaking of the Gra and Medrash, that's my excuse. He supposedly said that the reason why he didn't write on Medrash, he wrote on everything, right? He wrote on Halacha, on this. Do you know why he didn't write on Medrash? You know this? Remember, I don't know. I have to find it. It's because Medrash is for Yemais HaMashiach. So boom.
That's from the Gra.
As they say. So that's my answer to you. Where Yemais HaMashiach. Everyone knows that. Everyone says that.
I promote that, but it has to be. We're trying to fill this out.
Right.
I had noticed as Chassidish is saying about the Medrash and the Zohar, that the Arizal explained the Zohar, but nobody understands the Medrash yet. Which is interesting.
Yeah.
So wait. So let me think. So that's
by the way,
problem.
that's my proof that we're in Yemais HaMashiach is that I'm doing Medrash.
Okay.
Serious.
And Baya.
Yeah.
Let's do it. maybe it would be easier. So if you could claim, and just to give you, so that was one grand social theory.
Right.
So it seems to be, and there might be reasons for this, in the sense of course, you're not very far. You're still at least followed halacha of the Rishonim and most of
Right.
their Haggadah, to be real. You don't do much more than that. And if we would do much more than that, my understanding is that the Torah that we have now was given by the Rishonim entirely. You could start from the Goyim. Of course, everything is, I'm not to be too crazily radical, but you can't really argue on the Rishonim and have anything Yiddishkeit that looks anything like what we have. That might be a good thing. I'm just...
I understand.
So that's like a problem. And I also would have internal reasons for finding it very hard to reject the Rishonim, at least in many parts of what they're doing.
Many parts of what?
Of what they're doing. They were actually very smart.
Yes. I agree with you. And by the way, and because I agree with you, I don't see this stark dichotomy between what I'm doing and what they're doing. You know, that's a very important thing. It's a very important point there.
Right. So this is maybe we should do better. I think, and maybe you agree, that the Rishonim are not as different from Chazal that you say, and also I want to disagree with what you said before about the Rishonim and Chazal on both sides. Both that Rishonim are Chazal. I'm trying to stop using this word Chachamenu Zachanim V'Vracha. It's a big chutzpah.
I agree with you on that 100%.
Every Chacham Michachmei Yisrael that's not alive or is Chachamenu Zachanim V'Vracha.
Right. No, I believe in a distinction between Tanoim and On. But what we make that distinction. But then it's the same.
We could think about, I don't know, I didn't think about that. But we shouldn't say that. And the Rishonim, I don't know, I have to do some research on who invented this word Chazal. I'm pretty sure it's very late. The Rishonim never said that. They used to say Chachmei Yisrael and Chachamenu. But this title Chazal, I think, is probably a late title. Maybe the Maskell made it up. I would like to come up with something like that. I don't know if it's true.
Yeah, I mean, that's why, by the way, parenthetically, I was bring this up when people get all hung up on the authorship of the Zohar. And we know who authored the Mar Nevuchim and the Mishnah Torah, and yet we revere the book and sometimes even say it's Baruch HaKodesh and so on and so forth. And who cares, you know? I respect people.
Oh, and there are the people the people in that area definitely call the Rambam Chazal. And we have met multiple examples of this.
Of calling what?
And the people are confused. People are confused about this. There's multiple sources. You could talk about the Zohar himself, or the people that the Shainim and the Sviva of the Zohar, who in their language call things from the Rambam and people in his generation Chazal. And people are confused. They say, "Oh, here's a quote of him saying Chazal." No, he just called the Rambam Chachamenu for obvious reasons, because he was
right. I don't think the chain ended with Ravina Ravashi. 100%.
So
100%.
Okay.
Yeah.
I also think that in the other direction, but my friends are very mad when I say it. So that Chazal were not so continuous. The reason, in many ways, the Tanoim,
see, that's what I was going to say. I don't want to be pilloried here, but I was not drawing it necessarily between Ravina and the Rambam. It was more Tanoim. That's I think with Tanoim something was lost. Medrash, obviously. By the way, Medrash.
There's for sure something. But
the thing we're talking about, which is Medrash, is obviously associated most closely.
Of course, that's something that Tanoim made up or did. That was their thing. But Medrash itself has, I would think that Medrash, and this is a very strong claim that has to be defended, but Medrash has a similar relationship to the Torah as what we see as the Rishonim project has. It just covered up much better. And done in a much closer way. They're better. I would agree that they know how to read better.
But that's what I'm talking about. That's what I'm talking about.
Right, but if you I guess when we talk about concepts, we'll be a whole other conversation. They're much better at putting what they want into the Torah, or at reading what they need out of the Torah, or about reading it. Okay,
I didn't mean that. I meant reading it.
I get it, but whatever it is, the Medrash part is much better. But the in the sense of there's a reason why they can't, right? The basic rule is if you can't create something, you don't understand it.
If you can't create something, what? I missed you.
This is my rule. I made it up. Yitzchok Lowy's theorem. If you can't create something, you don't understand it.
Oh, I love it. I say that also. I was mechaber to you.
So
seriously. Because you can't create the rule on your rule unless I said it myself.
Exactly. Or at least if you learn someone else's pshat good enough until it's killy.
Yeah, and you feel like you made it up, and you convince yourself that you thought of it first. That's the simon that you understand it. Yes.
Great. So, and therefore, since Tanoim very clearly can't write Mikra, can't even write one pasuk. Actually, there are some. I can't say that they entirely can't. They do write some things in the style of the Tanach, most famously Nusach HaTfilah, but mostly can't.
Although
and
that
for sure can't.
Okay. Fine.
A lot of the Nusach HaTfilah is from Ameroim even, who can write in the style of Tanach, and later, of course. But we have in Gemara already in this class and stuff. And for sure can't make it if writing is one thing and making it have the kind of social or authority or whatever nevuah is another thing, and they for sure can't do that.
Right.
And
I
therefore
think it's fundamentally different, that kind of writing, but I guess whatever.
I guess, of course, but it's not. I mean, it's not. You could argue about this, but Aviv Shat, it's not that they could have written another shtickle Tanach and they didn't.
No, I agree with that. I agree with that.
And of course, they do something else. They're not trying to do the same thing and failing. They're trying to do something else, but they're doing something different. But that also means that their maybe can't entirely understand.
No, because that doesn't violate Yitzchok Lowy's rule. I disagree. Yitzchok Lowy's rule, at least in my understanding of the rule, which means what it is for me, was applying to apodictic study, learning, something that's given to explication. But Tanach is an art. Writing Tanach is an art form. I could be a good art critic, and doesn't mean I could do the same painting. At least I understood it. I thought we were talking about understanding of torah.
I'm very suspicious of the art critics that can do art.
Okay.
I feel like there's
literary critics who can't write Shakespeare. You're saying they don't understand it. Okay, that's. I didn't think the theory goes that far, because there
is the opposite thing where the people that can write can't explain it.
Right.
But also the people that explain it and can't write it, I'm missing something. Yeah. For sure. Their explanation. It doesn't mean that the explanations are false. This is very. I guess.
What does it mean, though? So what does it mean? But they're missing something.
There's a level of like the difference between an original and a replication. Like to use like Platonic terms, right? You're always recreating something. You're always representing something, but you're not the living thing.
So what do we do with the fact that no prophet like Moses will arise again?
I
know, because because especially because even the way I think about it, Nevi'im Meksuvim themselves are just interpreting Moses. Meanwhile, they're not Moses, so they're violating your rule.
Yeah, of course. They're better. Maybe they can do something more similar to what he did, and so on.
That means that's all there is for us to do.
Okay, we got very far here, but I think that this pasuk that says in the end of the Torah, "Lekam Lowy b'Yisrael k'Moshe," is meant to be cried. It's not meant to be said like in a happy tune.
Okay. All right.
There's just a pasuk, the fetish, Lowy k'Moshe kamani yakim lach.
Sure.
But anyways,
there's also my theory that there's also my theory that a Navi like Moshe is Moshe. So that's why it's never.
Okay, that maybe
like the Tikkun Ezra, Moshe b'chol dar, Pashtus the Moshe b'chol dar.
Right. That would be an answer, but that's a real madraga. It's not like a joke. You could say it.
I know.
We don't really have that, or at least we have. Maybe we have it. Moshe ad Moshe, or like once in a millennium.
Let me push back on your theory, though. Let's say you have a Moshe who rises again, and you say, "Oh, if you're really a Moshe, then write it." And he's like, "No, okay, write it." So it's like there's no. That's exactly my point. Another Moshe is Moshe. He's going to do the same thing. Moshe takes up all the space. Like what do you want? There's nothing more to write, right? There's nothing left to do.
There's a problem. I get it. I got that there's a problem, but it's like a...
No, but I'm saying I don't know if it's a problem. Maybe he can redo Moshe, but he does. That's why you write the Sefer Torah. Mitzvah, write the Sefer Torah. Everyone redoes. Every Moshe redoes Moshe.
Very good. That's a good chat. In reality, to get back to where we came from, maybe. But if we assume like I understand something, and we agree really, so then what we're not thinking of being Moshe. Okay, that's a separate problem. Let's leave that on the side. We're thinking about interpretation. I think there could be an honest interpretation or a correct interpretation even without being the thing itself. It'll just be a different level.
Without being Nevi'im.
It's just it's just not the same thing. Maybe it doesn't carry the same authority by definition. Maybe it's missing something and it does need like Moshe to come back and things like that. But it's a thing that has worked. Oh, by the way, okay, I don't know. But let's say it worked to some extent, and let's say it's been done. What did I want to get to? Like I want to get to why we stopped, like who's doing it and how we stopped doing it.
Right.
And there's like at least one thing, if you understand it like this, right? If you understand that there's a living thing, right? This is like the basic theory of Yitzchok, but there's a lot of truth in it in the historical sense, right? You don't have to believe in anything for this. If there's like an original, and then let's say have Tanoim that are understanding it very well. Of course, they already have arguments which shows that they don't understand it perfectly. There's some imperfection, and of course, Tanoim are living in a different context and a different culture and different environment than the Torah was written. A very different one, right? For sure, from Moshe. Moshe grew up in Egypt. Nobody knows anything about ancient Egypt. We know a lot since Napoleon paid for historians to write about it. But we don't really understand anything about how they thought. And then Tanoim are all living in a Hellenistic world, and I actually do think that we understand that world a little better than Egypt. Also, not really a lot.
Interesting. Okay.
It's important to notice this because they use basic Hellenic concepts. There's no way to get out of it. You can of course argue if it's the same ones or different ones, but they're speaking the language and they're living in that world. And in some sense, like this, the history of Tanach versus Chazal is the Tanach exists in the Tanach is nechtam, at least in the Persian period, and Chazal start when Alexander conquers the world, right? So more or less, okay. And then Seder Olam, you know these titles. Anyways, and they're living in a very different world, and we somewhat understand that world, and we could see if you like. At least for very little, if you do like a lot of research, you could see how there's this translation happening or understanding the Torah from the vantage point of someone who lives in a different state. And then, if you go, then you get what's my grand historical story here, or something like. Then you get the Muslim conquests 1,000 years later. In between, there's Talmud Bavli. Nobody understands that anyways, so. But the Muslims, it was written under the Sasanian Empire. Don't ask me. And then we get the Goyim who start living in a Muslim context, and we have the rereading of the whole Torah in the Muslim sense. This is extremely obvious if you know anything about the Muslim Torah, like how it was developed. It's something that we know even a little more about, although there's actually less translations correctly done still, and so on.
Less translations, why?
And then we have a lot more English to read from the classical period that Chazal knew than we have from the Shainim. If you read Arabic, I guess you could know everything, but I don't. And then you have, so that's the Shainim sort of, and then of course you have this switch of context to Europe, where people are immediately happens, right? The Ramban already is reading the Rambam and not understanding everything that he says. And there's big machloikos in how to read it and so on. And of course, we got the Chachmei Tzarfas and their context, which again nobody understands. This is a true thing. We don't have.
I know where you're going with this. This is very fascinating. Where are you going with this? I lost. What your point is.
Okay, I'm just getting like the levels of translation, and then you have whatever happens in Achronim times. You have Chassidus and Gra and all these things, and now we have us with whatever's going on.
So why did they write a book?
We're about seven levels removed. 7 levels in the sense of 7 olamas, like 7 shmittas removed from the Torah.
So why did Moshe write a book?
Not only do you want to go back to the 7 shmittas ago, you're also going to have to like do it through this whole path, right? So,
but see, that's why that's interesting, because that's a lot of the subtext of this conversation is that I sort of try to avoid going through that path, and like not because I don't have great respect for that path and the history and every part of it, but because I think that in order for us to recover the original, we have to just go boom straight to it. And to your point about it being 7 shmitas away from us, I say, well, he wrote a book. The book is meant to endure. So therefore, I disagree with your point about it being subject to its context, which has then gone through all these narrations. Look, one of my big theories related to that used to be because I started rethinking it, that context of the Torah Shabbat doesn't matter. Anything external to the Torah Shabbat doesn't matter. Like, I don't care about Egyptology. Again, this is my old theory. I maybe started realizing that maybe it's not such a great theory. but that Egyptology has nothing to teach us about the Torah. Because it's a book, and as a book, it's meant to endure beyond its immediate milieu.
That's for sure true, but the question is how, right? It's true in the sense that it has survived. If it wouldn't have been for other Tkufas, it wouldn't have survived. But
right,
the
right, and therefore its core, its essence, and its genius transcends any particular culture, and therefore we should just approach it and,
of course,
without thinking about that. We shouldn't limit ourselves.
I didn't say that you should learn Egyptology now. What I that's why this whole background is not really my argument. What is my argument? My argument is would be from the internal Jewish authority, I mean, I don't even know now.
Could I ask you this way? Because I keep on thinking this. Are you essentially arguing that whatever my chedushim are, I should pretend that they were said by the Rishonim? Because I sometimes do that. I don't make outside here, but I sometimes do that. Is that the answer? Is that what we're looking for? Like a political issue here that I should be aware of?
No, not for political reasons. Firstly, because they were said by the Rishonim.
Right. No, that's true. I know. That gets back to what I was saying before. Right. The Rishonim were very smart.
We don't read enough.
What?
We don't read enough of the Rishonim either. If you read enough of the Rishonim, you find a lot of things that we think that they said already.
Right.
Or even problems that we have that they have already, and so on.
Of course.
Of course, it would be useful. Also, the reason I'm saying this is so why am I Egyptology is not useful for what the Torah is. It might be useful for translation in the sense of the Medrash says that Anochi is an Egyptian. If you not know that, you're not going to understand what it's doing. Maybe there's a reason for it being like this. Get a lot of but also something more important. And we're gonna. My clock says 56 minutes, but you want to get into the head of someone who is your teacher, who you're trying to learn from. If you want to do that, maybe you don't want to do that, but if you want to do that, you need some way to do it. I find it extremely difficult to do, and many people who think that they're doing that are just making up things from their own head, and if they're smart enough, they could make that person say it. Because how many data points is the whole Torah? It's not so long, okay? 300,000 letters or something. It's not so much. Someone very smart, like the Vilna Gaon, could put them all into whichever system he wants. And that does mean that there isn't a way to find out what he really wants.
That gets to that point.
But it does
mean, is there one way?
But it does mean that it's extremely hard. Now, for example, I could only take examples, right, that I think that I know a little bit about, right? You want to get into the head of someone like Maimonides, right, the Rambam. He actually gave us the lists of the books they read. We sort of can reconstruct his library, what he knows. And to do that takes a lifetime, because it took him a lifetime. And then maybe you can understand what he's saying. And that's thanks to us living in the same intellectual tradition in the broad sense as him, right?
Right.
So there's only one, right? We live in this Western philosophical tradition, which is sort of the same one. Of course, it was changed and messed up so many times, but you could read, there's translations, there's a history of everything. And even that is extremely hard. Most people fail at it, including many people claiming to be Rambamists whose readings of him are so far from anything that it's crazy.
Sure.
So, and I'm making Kavachoyme from Moshe Rabbeinu. There's different challenges. I don't know if you need to do the same kind of things. But it seems to be at least very hard. I keep on getting back to this being very hard, so not in principle.
Right. But I want to just make a point that, you know what? Guess what? It was very hard for me, and I worked very hard on it for 10 years till I feel like I figured it out. So, I don't know. What's...
Yeah, but now you have to work to let's say if that's true, you have to now work to convince other people. And they're also have a whole 10 years, okay, we're going to get into real discussions at some point, but
all right, clock's going to expire very soon, so I guess we just have to...
Yeah, I guess what anyone else understands is also a lot of years, maybe not personally, of other people.
No, because I don't think everyone has so committed to anyone understanding. I disagree. I think most people are not. Most people are like you. I want to find the guy who says, no, you don't understand, I do, and then I can debate him. The guy who's like, no one understands. Well, how can I debate him?
Well, we're still talking about the prerequisites for the prerequisites. We'll get to the debate at some point.
All right. Anyways...
We'll get to it at some point.
I learned something from talking to you as always.
Okay.
Shkayach.
Hope we'll get somewhere. Thank you.